All right, welcome everyone into episode 11 of the Hooley Brothers podcast here on a Saturday. Mike, how you doing today?
Peachy.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get right into it. Again, thanks everyone for joining us on a Saturday afternoon here. A lot of snow outside where we are in Boston, and I don't know. Hopefully, we're done with that soon because I'm dying to get back outside again. But anyway, we had an exciting moment on last episode show, breaking the Fernando Tatis Jr. trade, or re-signing rather, as it happened, and now I think I'm addicted to that. I need something to break in these like 2 hour long sessions we have a week. So I'm really hoping that happens a lot more.
Yeah, it was definitely fun to just get right into the nuts and bolts of the deal and kind of react as people were and gain some more takes, and it was a good time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun just seeing the breaking news alerts pop up on your phone too, because again, a lot of times you'll scroll through Twitter and eventually see it, but getting the alert on your phone is quite the rush. Again, I got it the other day. I almost wish we were recording. Like I said, it's all I can associate with it now. But anyway, so the big news of the week in the NFL, which is where we're going to start today. Carson Wentz getting traded from the Eagles to the Colts for a third round pick this year and then a second round pick next year that based on how Wentz performs, number of snaps taken, and also playoffs as a factor, could potentially become a first round pick. So I guess where we start here is what are your thoughts on the return here?
For which perspective, the Eagles?
Either one.
I was going to say, I'm going to start with the Colts and saying now that Philip Rivers was retiring and you already had Jacoby Brissett as a quarterback, and the free agent market kind of got it pretty saturated pretty quickly with the whole Stafford going to LA, because I feel like that was a pretty good matchup for them. So that I think it was at a point with Frank Reich as your coach, you would think the target kind of was Carson Wentz, and you really became a one-team market looking around the league, because I don't think anyone else would have given up as much as they did. Not even saying they gave up too much. I was just thinking that it just seemed like I said in the last podcast, it was pretty inevitable. It was going to eventually happen. So
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
definitely a QB upgrade, and you got to hope he can get back to the 2017 self because I feel like he worked pretty closely with Reich back in Philly more than Peterson, and you saw like they didn't even talk the last like 10 weeks of this season. So if the Eagles had to move on from him, I feel like this was his best location. So I think it was a pretty good job to find their guy for the Colts. Like, you got to do something.
Yeah, it seemed like this is where he was going to end up, no matter what. Just it made too much sense with Frank Reich, but yeah, I think the price is pretty much what it should have been. I think there were talks of like I don't think you were ever going to fleece Philly in this deal and only give away maybe just a third or just a second, whatever it might be. And now, so I don't think Philly was getting what they wanted on their initial return, which is multiple first round picks. It didn't seem like that was going to happen. So again, I don't know how much benefited Indy with storylines of other teams kind of backing out. It seemed like there wasn't really. It seems like the Bears are the only team even remotely interested, and then I think there were reports that they kind of backed out at the end. So it did kind of, like you said, really took away a lot of the market, a lot of the leverage that Philly had, because they're really only dealing with one team. But I think at the end of the day, it was a fair deal because Philly gets a mid-round pick next year, and then if Indy gets everything they want out of Wentz this year, then Philly gets another first rounder. So it can kind of help you moving forward here. But
yeah, I think it was
yeah,
more of like they kind of were like, okay, first and a third, like this year's third, next year's first, kind of like locking it up. And then I think they probably looked around and be like, we're negotiating against ourselves. And it was like, okay, can you at least like add a conditional tag just to make sure he even just plays, because they can go 3-13 if he plays every single game. It's going to end up being a first.
That's true.
It was 75%. 75% of snaps, automatic first, or 70, and then make the playoffs. So
yeah, well, if you're 3-9, you just bench them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not going well, you just bench them. But yeah, that's where Indy kind of gets. It's like, all right,
protection.
You're either going to have your first round pick, or you probably had a pretty good season with Wentz and Air competing for a playoff spot. So, yeah, I think that's again because Wentz is still a young guy. He's probably like 26, 27. Like he's not. I think maybe 27 years old. So he's still young, especially when we're seeing quarterbacks playing to the late 30s, early 40s now. So yeah, I think it was the perfect spot for Wentz. I think Philly gets to move on. Something I do want to bring up here, and I think there's a lot of mixed emotions in Philly right now, both with the return and also just kind of how everything broke down with Wentz to begin with. But I'm not. Again, we talked about this thing last, or maybe on another episode. I'm not saying completely blindly hand the keys to Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying like you should have no contingency plan, but I don't think they should be spending a first round pick at a quarterback. I think that just kind of you're just not addressing anything else. You just keep. I don't know. I think that's a terrible idea if they do that.
No, because they have so many other weaknesses, especially at the skill position. I think
Right.
even like they're pretty weak at the corner. I remember that Cowboy game they played, and they had one corner give up like 9 catches for 180 yards at any time he got targeted. So I think they definitely have some weakness in the secondary. But I
Yeah.
think first and foremost, you got to get a guy for Hurts, even though they have tried with they had some pretty swings and misses with Arcega-Whiteside, and Rager looked pretty good at the end of this past year, but he couldn't really stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I think you might want to go with, especially if you can get either Smith or
One of
Chase.
the
I'm
big
not
three
sure.
up there.
Maybe you might want to go somewhere else, like on defense, if you're not too big on Waddle. But I think if
you could go Caleb Farley or something on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah.
So like I think if you can get Chase or Smith, it's an automatic no-brainer. Like just hope that's it's going to be Sewell and maybe someone trades up, so it's 4 quarterbacks before you go in the top 5. That's
Yeah.
or even
Exactly.
even Sewell 3 quarterbacks and one of the receivers, and it's like, okay, we're at 6. Just give us the one you don't want.
Right.
So yeah, like I think from Philly, as they sat, like if you don't look in the past and be why do we commit all this money to him and why do we have dead cap?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is clearly we need to move on. The league knows we have to move on. We're just gonna have to deal with our dead cap. I think just all that involved, it was a pretty decent return. Like the fact that the entire league knew they were screwed, even though like I said, like with Wentz, it's just so inconsistent. Where it was either like you can look at any clip of him and you see him like threading a needle on a 25-yard down, like touchdown down the sideline, and then you can see that playing Monday Night Football against the Seahawks where he like hits a safety in stride. It's just gonna have to roll the dice there. So
yeah. So again,
and back to the Eagles quarterback scenario. I know you said you wouldn't blindly hand it to Hurts, but like I would think of either maybe trading back for Foles or signing like a Fitzpatrick, like someone that like
maybe like
a veteran to like kind of
or if you're really unsure, maybe going after a Mariota type, like just someone who can like be a stopgap guy. Chase Daniel's probably out there somewhere. He seems like he's bouncing around the league. That's always a good option.
I think I would want more higher up backup than Chase Daniel.
Hey, he's one of the best backups out there, but no,
he knows how to be a backup and get paid. But
yeah,
I don't think when he actually has to play, he does any good.
Yeah, exactly. I do wonder if you would go maybe the more mobile route with with kind of Jalen Hurts' style of play. Maybe you would get more of a guy who can move around like a Mariota, like depending on what happens with Cam Newton, who knows where he ends up. RG3, I don't know if he's still kind of kicking around there. So I think someone, you know what I mean, like who's more mobile could be a good fit there. But either way, I think if you're going to look for depth there, I'd go veteran. I wouldn't go with a first round pick. I just think if you want to truly find out,
you already used the draft capital last year.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's so many other parts of your roster that you have to build up, and then from Indy's perspective, like I think that if it's going to work anywhere with Wentz and you're going to get that back from him, it's here. So I think again, you reunite him with his old offensive coordinator. I know people are making jokes about it because it's been talked about so much that people are like, "Oh, did you know that?" But it is a good point. I mean, that's where he had that success. If it wasn't for what Brady did that year, he probably would have won MVP. If he, even if he stayed healthy, it would have been even closer to winning that award. So he has that form. He's shown that he has that form, and like I said, still in his 20s. So could still definitely get back to that form.
Yeah, and he has a good run game with Jonathan Taylor, and then even like Hines out of the backfield pass catching will be a nice little dump off for him because I know even this year he did do pretty well dumping off the Boston Scott and stuff like that. And an improved receiving core. I know Hilton's a free agent, but even they had some good young guys with like Michael Pittman and even Zach Pascal is like a pretty big target. And like Jack Doyle, like he had a pretty good playoff game. So like it's like a decent receiving core. But
they could definitely be back in the playoffs.
With a good line, good run game, and they were probably like a top 5 to 10 defense last year. So there's definitely more around him than
it's
a lot. I think it was probably the best team he has around him since the Super Bowl team, and he was
exactly
like that year. So it's definitely worth the shot for Indy, especially dealing with Rivers last year. I think there's more of a thing you knew we were going to get with Rivers, kind of a first round exit, but I think with Wentz you could either end up making some noise or 7-9.
Yeah, exactly. I think he really has the team built around him, like you said. to succeed. I mean, maybe not like the the top tier wide receivers, but again, like you said, good O line, good weapons as well.
Anything
And then
better
like you
than
said,
the Philly one,
defense is good.
especially
Well,
from 2 years ago.
that's actually true too. It is an upgrade. Yeah. So, yeah. So again, we're starting to see a little movement. I know we went through the league on last week's episode, kind of determined everyone's QB positions, but it does seem like there is kind of a domino effect. What's the next thing that's going to happen? And I mean, it all depends on really how firm of a stance Houston is taking with Deshaun Watson, because it seems like that's the next indicator of what's going to happen. I think it's going to determine other markets. I have on, San Francisco is kind of a big question mark here, because we've been, I think, kind of hearing that, they're probably going to stick with Garoppolo unless they get Deshaun Watson. And then there were talks to speak of Darnold. And is Darnold someone who they can acquire? Say the Jets go with Zach Wilson or someone at number 2, and they're willing to move Darnold. Is that someone who you consider enough of a replacement over Garoppolo to then move him? So
Yeah, I think like the words exactly was, we're gonna hold on to Jimmy unless we can get a upgrade, like, or a significant upgrade. It's like, okay, of course Watson is, but like, is Darnold?
Exactly.
Is like, it's really hard to draw this line in the sand. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be really interesting what happens, especially if like the free agency, not free agency, but some of the trade markets might, like, is it gonna last to the end of April, or do you think we're gonna see some action with like free agency going on? Like, I know that begins in March and the draft's more at the end of April. Like, what's gonna happen in that like month? Like, is it just gonna like stay until the draft? Because I know, like, thinking like the Pats, like, if some QBs fall, like, do they trade up or at least try to like jump ahead of San Francisco and like make them trade
Right.
Jimmy to them? So it's gonna be pretty interesting to see just timing wise how this all goes
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I'm at the point where I just think every year, no matter what you think, quarterbacks, except for maybe 2013 when it was a disaster with EJ Manuel and Geno Smith, but I feel like every year quarterbacks go faster than you think that they're going to. I mean, I know we've seen some drop in the past. Like I said, that year was weird. There was, Rodgers and Brady Quinn and stuff like that. But I feel like for the most part, we see teams, it's like, okay, like 2 go, and then they start panicking, being like, oh, they're not going to last to me at 10 or whatever. And then they have to move up. So I think you'll see that. I think a team to look out for is Carolina. Again, they seem to be, I was reading some stuff this week too. They've been kind of, the country Boston. They've been trying to make some space, I think, to maybe try to acquire Deshaun Watson. And if not, do they draft? And I think that they do if they can, but do they have to trade up to draft? Do they go up to, and McShay, I know a while back had them trading up to 3 to get Trey Lance. So I don't know. I think we're going to see a lot of QBs go early on, and I don't see the Patriots trading up for that. So I think they're definitely, I mean, they really might bring back Cam Newton. They might look at other options. A lot might be determined by what happens in San Francisco, though, because
Yeah,
you
it's
obviously want,
it's on Deshaun's fate,
yeah,
whether it's Carolina, because then that could open up a spot for some, like, I'm saying the Patriots, someone to get their QB, because that's one less team in the top 10 that needs a QB now. If it's San
right,
Francisco, that means Jimmy G's in the move. So it's kind of,
yeah,
if it's Denver, kind of like nothing really changes, because it's like, okay, we're just
yeah,
gonna
exactly.
lock back him up at that point. Like, unless, I'm really sure what the market for Drew Lock is right now.
Yeah, I mean the Carolina situation probably wouldn't be ideal for Patriots, because then Houston probably gets that 8th pick and takes
Yeah,
QB there, and then San Francisco still sticks with Jimmy G. But then it's like, okay, well, if the Jets are taking it, and even though they're a division rival, I don't know if it quite happened. We've seen trades between the teams before, but then do you get a guy like Sam Darnold if
yeah.
they're moving to Zach Wilson or something like that? So there's, like you said, all these different chips that I think need to fall to truly, kind of, clear the air and see where, when the dust settles, like where these quarterbacks are going to end up. And yeah, it's crazy. I think a lot of it's going to be determined by Deshaun Watson if and when he moves, and then, like you said, the draft and free agency are obviously huge components here as well. But yeah, something we'll have to track. I know I'm desperate to find out who the next quarterback of the Patriots is going to be. Again, I was a huge Cam fan going into the year. It just doesn't look like he can throw the ball, because otherwise, like, again, it's like, okay, if he had a weird year, then yeah, I wouldn't hate it. But there's nothing that convinced me that he can throw the ball anymore.
Yeah, it was at the point in the off season was, okay, you have Stidham and Hoyer. Like, let's at least try something if it's going to cost us nothing. And
Oh yeah, I have I think people are giving Belichick a lot of flack for trying to take the cheapest option, last minute option. I thought it was a great move at the time. You know what I mean? Like, again, there was obviously injury questions there, but I think given where he was, I couldn't believe Cam. I think it's all a lot of revisionist history now. I think it was a good move at the time. It just didn't work.
at the time, it was a good move. I think people more might complain about what the 3 moves before that were that led to this.
Meaning,
like letting Brady walk, like letting the books end up that way, or they kind of had to be cheap last year. Like, I don't have cap space now, but
yeah.
So
No, for sure. But yeah, that was again big news of the week was once the Colts. We'll have to see what happens with Watson and where all the dominoes fall from there. If Jimmy G staying in Sanford, moving on. What a team like Carolina does. Again, a lot of question marks at a lot of places. Also, the Bears, the whole Trubisky situation, they bring him back. Are they moving on? Just a lot of things still to be determined here. And it should be exciting in the offseason. Football, it's especially this year, it seems like extra more this year. The season's never truly dead. It seems like there's always something going on. But yeah, so again, we wanted to kind of lead off with that NFL news. Now I want to get into some NBA. It's been a very frustrating season, I'd say, and especially the last week or so for the Celtics. So we obviously talked on Wednesday when they were playing the Denver Nuggets. So, or no, I'm sorry with that. That was the Hawks game. Sorry, I'm getting my days confused. I had Monday off. I'm all over the place. But anyway, so we were kind of mid that game, and it had come off of a low point with a loss versus the Wizards. Then you come back, banged up Denver team, but you beat them on your home floor. Then a huge letdown against Atlanta, and then you play Atlanta again last, and you come back up. So a lot of ups and downs here. So again, really not sure what to make of this team, but we do know that they have to be way more consistent if they have any chance of going anywhere this season.
Well, even that game, like they had a pretty good first quarter, and then that kind of like the beginning of the second quarter was god awful. Like the first 4 minutes, I think it was like a combined 4-0 Atlanta. It was sloppy shooting, sloppy turnovers, and even the beginning of the game, like even just kind of going quick look at a player like Tristan Thompson, he had a great game. If you look at his stat line, he had 17 points when he had 9 shooting, but in 27 minutes he only had 5 rebounds. And on the defensive end, Clint Capella had 24 points on 11 of 14 shooting with 15 rebounds. He kind of was able to get his way on the offensive side, but just getting eaten alive by Clint Capella. And then I think he did kind of benefit well from a terrible shooting night from some Hawks. John Collins was 3 of 13. So was Cam Reddish. Danilo Gallinari was 2 of 14. Or was only
I'm sorry, is this last night or Wednesday?
Last night. Last night. Yeah. Or it was 2 and 7. So even on the games we win, we kind of let them hang around for a while.
Well, the fourth was terrible last night.
Mm-hmm.
They were up 24 at one point, got down to 8 or something. It was not good.
Yeah, it was really the end of the first half was the best basketball. That was when Kemba stepped into a lot of threes, got an and one. He finally started the last 5 games he's played. He's starting to look like his old self.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to call out. People, I mean, again, you listen to too much stuff around here, but everyone just seems like they're giving up. It's okay, you have 2 players. It's can we not dismiss Kemba already? He's clearly the third option, but people are almost don't think he can do that. And granted, I think we need to see it on a much more consistent basis now, but I think people are very quick to kind of consider him dead, consider it a bad contract already. It's just all right, the guy was hurt to start the year. Granted, that's kind of a problem, and really he seems to be coming back up every now and then. And he's obviously not playing second nights of back-to-backs, but I'm not willing to right the ship on him here yet, because again, he had a 28 point performance last night, and he shows that he has the capability. It's just keeping it consistent.
Yeah, and even just seeing he was able to finally get to the hoop pretty well.
Yeah, he's finishing at the rim a lot better.
Yeah, because like I said, he got a couple and ones that were pretty good. I think there's one very good fast break pass he had to Brown, off sort of a rebound. So it's good to see him finally get back into shape, and it's just even back to the Celtics of a bigger thing. Just got to keep the consistency up, because like I said, there's some points where their offense looks like it's unstoppable. It's nothing but automatic threes, getting to the basket pretty well, and there's other times where they just are turning it over, dribbling off their foot, miscommunicating passes.
Tatum.
Turnovers definitely need to get into shape, because even I looked, there was only, I think it was 26 to 18 was the ratio last night, but those 18 seemed pretty brutal. Just watching the game.
Yeah, and it's funny though, because again, you mentioned kind of the night that Capella had 24 and 15, but Thompson himself, again, you said only 17 and 5, but I think the big men combined, you had Tice had 8 rebounds, and Robert Williams had what was that, 7 himself. So as a team, it's just kind of maybe a little bit.
I was more zeroing in on Thompson on the defensive side there. I was kind of from watching it.
Right.
But
so they obviously
big men. I think that if you can just get I know the whole thing going in this year, it's it's all about his effort. It's all about his effort. His effort's been there every single game this year. I think Robert Williams needs to be healthy and just needs to get a little bit smart, less reckless. because
Yeah.
he does fall for the first pump fake pretty easily sometimes because he
Yeah.
played 16 minutes and he was
I know what you
unbelievable.
mean.
He was unbelievable
Yeah.
out there. It was like some lobs. Like I think it was one time they just threw it up to him like Brown. Like I think he was trying to get a foul on. Like it might even been a
I thought it
shot.
was.
It might even been a
I
shot.
thought it was
He just,
over his head. Yeah.
yeah, and he just clicked it up and like one-handed it off the glass and in. Like he's been unbelievable on the offensive side and had some pretty good blocks, but he just is pretty undisciplined because he's only able to be on the floor for 16 minutes because he had 4
That's
fouls.
it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that's the key with Robert Williams is one, the health. I mean, it seems like there's some stat about him like not being able to play 10 games in a row or something. Like he's never had a 10-game stretch in a row where he's been healthy or something like that. So that's obviously the main concern. Like you said, the recklessness. I think not even so much with like, maybe turnovers, but yeah, it seems like he gets into foul trouble way too soon. So I think
he falls for
being
pump fakes
more
pretty
disciplined.
easily.
Yeah, I know. I have it in my mind. Someone putting it up and like biting on it, and someone
Yeah,
kind
because
of blowing past
even
him.
Young got him pretty bad on like it was a
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
high pick and roll, and he literally jumped from like the free throw line to the 3-point line, and Young just like kind of sat there waiting for him to get there and just like leaned into it. It was like the easiest thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he can like solidify himself as like the elite big man on the team, that's huge. Like because then it's kind of less pressure on Thompson, less pressure on Tyson, and you kind of like look around. It's like okay, we have a decent like big man front court, and like the depth kind of falls out after that because the next closest guy is probably Taco. But
3 is solid. It's all
you get an NBA rotation. That's all you really need. So if he can play like he did last night, just be a little bit smarter. I think I like how our front court looks.
Yeah, and obviously like there's always room for improvement from Tice Thompson and Robert Williams, but I think right now I don't see the Celtics making multiple major moves. So if I can only have one, I want more bench scoring. So I'd be willing to move forward with the 3-headed monster there at the big position. Again, especially if Williams can stay healthy. And that's another thing too. I think last night, again, this is against the Atlanta Hawks, so I don't put too much into it. And again, they really almost gave it away down the stretch. But I liked how there was some balanced scoring last night. We're used to seeing, Brown and Tatum going off for 30 each or something like that. But again, there were 6 players in double figures last night, so all 5 starters, including the double big lineup that they went with last night with Tyson Thompson, which I don't hate against Atlanta with
Collins.
Yeah, but then Robert Williams off the bench, 12 points and 6 of 8 shooting and 7 rebounds. It's a great performance for him. So I think you're gonna need more of that.
Yeah, especially on a night that your rookies go combined 1 of 11.
Yeah, Pritchard 70s with 104. So again, that's I'm gonna say it. I floated it out there before, and I'm gonna say it again. And I think it's just never going to happen, but I really would love to see Isaiah Thomas back on this team just because I think it's just exactly what they need. They have nothing off the bench consistently anyway.
Yeah, because he played his first game for Team USA yesterday and had
19 points,
three 3-pointers in the first like minute and a half. And I saw someone say like sign him, and it was like it's one game against like the Dominican Republic. Calm down. And it was like someone replied, it was like I just saw him actually put the ball in the hoop. That's better than Jeff Teague.
I was just gonna say, like, replace. Yeah, that's all you're doing at that point. Like, because I can't believe how bad Teague's been. Honestly, like, it's almost like when they started this offseason, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about Jeff Teague, just because like I feel like he hasn't done much. But I didn't know he fell off that.
I knew he was like when like Minnesota was actually like somewhat decent a couple of years ago. It was like the 8th seed. He was their starting point guard. He was kind of like the weakest of the starting link, and I was like, well, he could like be like a good like
7th man,
Brad Wanamaker. Like I thought he would be like on
I know.
With him. But
I'd make that trade straight up right now.
And then the preseason, he had a great preseason, and then the opening night he had 18 points, and I was like, oh
yeah.
He has like one last little season left in him, and then it's terrible since.
So yeah, not great there, but yeah, I think we need consistency out of this team because the effort, and obviously it was an interesting interview. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it on 98.5 this week with Danny Ainge. And he even admitted the roster as it's constructed right now is not good enough to win a championship. And it's like, all right, Danny, well, what are you going to do about that? You're the person who controls that. So again, I think, like you said, shooting with size. We need some bench scoring again. I'd say IT, but again,
fingers crossed that the Pelicans had a tough fourth quarter last night against the Suns. They were up, but they ended up getting outscored 41-12 in the fourth quarter and blew that game. And then we have the Celtics playing them on Sunday. But I don't know if they kind of taper off and go down. Maybe get a guy like Josh Hart
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a name that's kind
because
of gonna float
yeah,
around.
because he's pretty cheap. Because I know we also traded away Cantor and Poirier. We also got trade exceptions in that deal.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think like a guy on the cheaper end, like Josh Hart, we can like use like a Cantor type trade exception, hold on to
Yeah.
your big one. So like you're not
Exactly. No, I'd love Josh Hart. I think, like you said, someone who's cheap. Maybe if because again, I still don't fully understand the thing, but it sounds like you can use the Hayward TPE next summer.
yeah.
So
I
I get if you want to do that. I do.
yeah, because like I said, like now that like Drummond's sitting out, like I think we already have a worse version of Andre Drummond and Tristan Thompson. So it's like I don't think we just need to like be using that on.
Yeah, in the past I've wanted him, but like I don't. Yeah, I don't see the need for it now.
If we didn't have Thompson, we just had like nothing. I'd be
Yeah,
like, yeah, do it.
exactly.
But
Yeah, the only one I'd consider, and even then, I don't know if I'd want to waste the TP on it, is Harrison Barnes, because again, he's a guy that's been shooting over 40% from three this year, has the size, could give more of a break to Tatum and Brown, if so they're not playing 40 minutes a night. But yeah, I think Josh Hart would be great, because then you kind of get the best of both worlds there if you're able to not even touch the Hayward TP, bring in some scoring. I think he scored 27 points the other day,
yeah,
so
a good night dealing, right?
shows that he can score at volume. But yeah, I think we're gonna need more from the rookies here, like you said. Pritchard had a bad game last night. We've been seeing a lot more in Aaron Nesmith, which I'm
I'm a fan of.
happy about. What is that?
I'm a fan of.
Yeah, exactly. I like seeing, even if we got to figure out if this guy has it no matter what. So I didn't really get why he didn't play the first like 25 games of the season, really. But I'm happy to see him more. He's again one of the first guys off the bench now, so we'll obviously see what he has going forward. And
I've been zeroing in on him when I watch some of these games. He's a very
yeah,
confusing player to watch, like because he's been given. It was like I watched like a little bit. Like he got blown by a couple times on defense, but he hit some threes. And like I was talking to my buddy about it, it's like, yeah, he's been looking better. Like he's been shooting a little bit better, but he can't really seem to dribble that well. If you've noticed that, like when he's like kind of brings up the ball, he's kind of like
he's
very
looking for
shaky.
someone to take it.
Yeah, he's
He's
always
looking for
very
someone to take
shaky.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, he just got blown by a couple times, but like at least like he's like giving effort. Like he's been crashing the boards pretty well in the defense.
He has been. He's been tracking people down on fast breaks on defense too.
He's been
I
giving a lot
think
of effort plays, and then like as I say that, he got an open corner three and airballed it, and then
that's what's weird.
came
Yeah.
down court and was like locking up, going all right. And I was like, okay, then like I guess he's just very inconsistent in everything right now. But that's a rookie. You should be. Is he still?
No, but it's just weird
20?
because everything. Yeah, he's 20 because I think he did
Yeah.
his sophomore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the confusing thing about him. I think I didn't expect a lot of other things, which is good. Like he's again playing harder defense, doing a lot of things better. But I thought he'd be a better shooter. You know what I mean? So it's like almost like a give and take. It's like, okay, I thought he was just going to be like a spot up, like not really do anything else, but be like money. Instead, that's kind of hasn't been as well. But maybe that's part of his psyche. Just like, all right, well, if I'm not hitting these, I got to like really, like lock up on defense and do other things on the court. So
yeah, so like he's been showing flashes of it panning out, which is I guess all you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like when his shot does go in, it's like oof, that looked nice.
Yeah.
Like, it was like in the first quarter, his only basket he made was like a nice off ball screen for him, and he kind of just stepped right into it like right away. Didn't even hesitate. But there was one play, like I think it was right after he airballed, and then on the possession before Pritchard, he just like took a deep three and missed it, and there was a point where like it was on the wing and like Neesmith got it, and there was kind of one guy like on him between Pritchard. But it was kind of like he hesitated for a sec, then put it to Pritchard, and then like he got it and like kind of hesitated because the last two possessions were them missing threes. And he pump faked, stepped on the baseline, and it was a turnover. So again, it's just kind of just rookie mentality you have to get through.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, I think it's good that we're doing this after last night's game.
Yeah.
Whereas I was heated on the second we hung up the phone hung up the call rather on.
Yeah, I think they kind of got the gist of us being mad at the Celtics on the last episode. So I thought
it was
I'd focus on the Friday night game.
Yeah, we were talking about the things, but I had the TV on and I just like I could not believe that they gave that game away. And again, it's just I'm trying not to react too much to each game, but it's really such an up and down. I think I have to show some sort of consistency. Like you said, a game against New Orleans, that should be a win. Again, this is a team that's struggling. Obviously, they have Zion and some other pieces there, but you should win that game. Again, you're gonna have to win some of these games. Even Dallas, like you, at least this year, you're a better team than them. You should win that game as well. Then you get Atlanta again, and so you should be able to go on a little bit of a run here, and not just keep winning
minimum. Like I want 3-0, but absolute minimum have to go 2-1 in this 3-game road trip.
even then, I'm just like at the point now where I'm like, that's even. I don't even know.
I was gonna
Like,
say at a
'cause then
minimum,
you're blowing a game in there. So I think you got to win all
like
three.
like I'd say like if you lose like a very very down to the wire game to like Luca or Zion, like they both have kind of like go off in like a little
Yeah,
stretch,
yeah, that'd be
and
the
then
only
take care
real.
of the Hawks again. Like I guess I can be like, okay, like at least they're playing well.
But yeah, they got to get way better. Again, if you take a look at again, the standings are just such a weird place right now because everyone's kind of log jammed to the middle. Uh, they've lost some ground, obviously, because again they've just been playing 500 ball essentially. But again, only I mean
Bucks
Milwaukee's
bounced
been
back
struggling.
last night
Yeah,
against
yeah, they've been struggling though.
mhm.
They obviously won last night, but only a game and a half behind them. One of the lost column. So yeah, again, we'll just kind of have to track that. Hopefully, get a little bit more consistency of the C's going forward. But as far as the rest of the league goes, we kind of while we're on these standings, injury riddled game, but potential finals matchup happened the other night, and Brooklyn and the Lakers. And the Nets came out on top. Again, there were some injuries that game. Durant didn't play for Brooklyn. Anthony Davis and Schroeder were out for the Lakers. So not quite the matchup we'll see if this does end up being the finals matchup. But big win for Brooklyn for your confidence, especially leading the way with Kyrie and James Harden there.
Yeah, it was yeah with AD's out with an injury and Schroeder's on the COVID contact list right now,
Mm-hmm.
so AD's gonna miss some time. I think it's gonna be out like a month. We'll get to that later as we go through the All-Star reserves. And then
Mm-hmm.
Schroeder's gonna be out for one more game, and I think he's gonna be back. But yeah, it was kind of a weird night. I'm just looking at the rotation. Like of course Kuzma and KCP and Wes Matthews all to start because of like the weak lineup. But
Right.
like even off the bench, like Harrell and Marcus Morris only played like 15 and Marquise Morris. I'm sorry, they only played 15 and 10 minutes respectively, and then like Caruso and Taylor Horton Tucker were a majority of the minutes off the bench. So kind of a weird rotation wise from them, but it seemed like an ass kicking pretty much because even though the final score was only 11
It's
points,
more
I
like
think,
11 points, right?
but I
Yeah.
think at points it was like 20 point deficit, like at points in the third quarter. I said the word points there a lot, but
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a big night from Harden with a nice 23 and 11, and a great shooting night from Joe Harris, 6 of 7 from three. So it shows
Nice.
that they definitely have.
Former champ.
Yeah, it shows they definitely have the capability outside the big three, especially when one
Yeah. No,
get
but
get
it's
a nice
scary
rhythm
though,
through.
because it's scary though. I think if you're a fan of the team in the East, because they did that without KD. I mean, granted there were injuries on the other side, so kind of take that as
Yeah.
you will, but they look like they're hitting a groove now. Again, especially the fact that I'm trying to not put too much into it with like AD being out and stuff, but I think the big thing there is they didn't win that game 130 to 125. They would have 98 points that game.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows you that your defense is showing signs of improvement, even with KD out, who's probably again out of the starting lineup besides your bigs, like probably the best defender you have. So I think that's a huge sign for the Nets having success. And I think I agree. They're the team to be in the East right now. I mean, I think Philly's had a great start to the season, but they've for the most part been healthy. Whereas again, Brooklyn's kind of just hitting their stride now. So I think even if Philly ends up with a 1 seed, Brooklyn will be the team to beat and the team most likely to come out of the East this year. But we'll keep an eye there. Again, big one for them in an injury riddled matchup, but a win nonetheless against the defending champs, the Lakers. Out west as well, Jazz did finally go down, as you mentioned, last night to the Clippers, close one. And again, if it was someone's going to take them down, it's probably going to be a top tier team in the league, like the Clippers. But still, the
Yeah, it was
Jazz.
good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was kind of a game time decision for both Leonard and George, and they both ended up playing, and it ended up being pretty good for them. Lou Williams had a good game off the bench as well, if I remember right. I caught most of that second
Still
half.
doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
only
so
we got a
close
guy
game
like him.
there. Exactly. So close game there. Clippers take down the Jazz. We're gonna have to see how that top three breaks out again. I think we've been waiting for this LA playoff matchup. It
Like
didn't happen
gonna
last year, obviously, because of the Nuggets. It might happen, but it might happen earlier this year. Not quite in the finals, because I think that's what everyone kind of penciled in once Kawhi and Paul George got their way to the Clippers, before last season. So again, we'll see how everything shakes out out west. Just a few other notes here, Mike. I think you did forget someone
Oh,
on.
there's a double 50 burger
There was
last
a
night.
double 50 burger
Yeah.
last night. So again, we'll start with Joel Embiid on the Sixers. I think it's always, especially in today's NBA, almost a little bit more impressive when you see a big man do it. But I mean, the guy's unstoppable. He really is in the MVP race. I think to start. Again, we're only about part with getting close to about halfway through the season now, and obviously I think LeBron's up there, but I think Embiid's right up there too with also Dame I throw in there as well.
Yeah, he finished with 50, 17, and 5, along with 4 blocks and 2 assists.
That's crazy.
In 35 minutes. He
Yeah.
is my MVP as we sit right now.
I think I'd agree with that. Again, LeBron's always there, and maybe that's just like
I
don't know. It's tough that I overlook him so much, but
we're gonna give it a Mahomes again, or are we gonna give it Aaron Rodgers, like that type
right. Belichick Coach of the Year, Popovich Coach of the Year. So stuff like that. I think I'd go Embiid as well. Dame's been heating up lately, but I think Embiid over the course of the whole season's been overall the best. So he put up 50 points last night, and then the other one, which is kind of a crazier stat, Jamal Murray put up 50 without attempting a single free throw.
Wow. Yeah, I know Embiid was like 17 of 17 from like the free throw.
Right, which is, again, that's part of his game. But I think even when guys are mostly shooting the lights out, you see him get to the line at least a couple.
Yeah,
no free throws attempted for
Jamal Murray. Someone finally bites on the pump fake when he was 8 of 10 from 3. Like when he's like 6 of 7, someone like bites on a pump fake and he either gets leans in or ends up driving.
Yeah, the elbow jumper. You do the old Paul Pierce move, get him to jump into you. But no, that's the first time it's ever happened too. So that's why I wanted to highlight
21 of 25 shooting.
Insane. That's like Brady passing like that game in versus Jacksonville or something. And obviously it's a lot harder in the NBA. Maybe you shoot 50%. In a game. So yeah, he was just locked in last night. We had shines of Bubble Murray last night. So because again, we all know
good to see him return
everything he did down there. Yeah, no, I love Jamal. He's a great player. I like seeing him be really good. I mean, that series last year with Utah was insane with him and Donovan Mitchell trading blows. So and then obviously he kept it going all the way to the Western Conference Finals. So two 50 burgers last night, double 50 burger Friday. In the NBA. And then another note before we get to the All-Star game, number 1 overall pick for this past year, Anthony Edwards, absolutely murdered someone on live television last night.
That was an unbelievable dunk, but he had a bad shooting night.
Yeah, that's another thing kind of making the rounds on Twitter is the party pooper. I don't even remember. I don't know if you have this guy's name up, but
I don't.
Pointing out that I think the Raptors won the game, which is
86-81 PU.
But also pointing out that I don't know if this was his final stat line or if it was at the time of the dunk, but he said 0 of 7 from the field.
He was
before that.
He was 0 of 7 from 3. 3 of 14.
0 of 7 from 3, right? Yeah.
Finished
3 of 14. That's what it was. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. 7-3.
So yeah. Everyone's trying to have fun on the internet. There's obviously someone who's gonna again ruin the party there. And then with the whole Raptors tweet, I love the take. It's just like, all right, no one even remembers who won that Warriors Jazz series when Baron Davis dunked on Karolinko. We just remember the dunk, and this is a regular season game, which actually doesn't really mean anything. So
yeah,
that's all we're gonna remember here.
I guess I remember the Clippers were killing the Knicks when Griffin posterized Mozgov, but I remember the dunk for the score.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. You could have told me the other way around. Wait, so who was the victim here? I think Aaron Baines got out of the way, so I can't remember who.
I don't think he was out of the way. I think he was kind of he was in the back.
But he wasn't the main. He wasn't the main.
He wasn't in contact. I'm saying, he wasn't in contact with him. I hate that they just don't have NBA as an option.
Yeah.
Let's see. If you ever load NBA, so good podcasting right now.
Was Malik?
I think it was
bring him there for some reason.
What time be?
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it was.
Ooh.
All right, sorry if there were any technical difficulties there. Again, just kind of wrapping up the NBA, we did want to move on to the All-Star game. So we made our I think our picks and then also our predictions for the starters. And I think really no surprises. I think we both had one on each side that we might have flipped out, but I think what we thought was going to happen is what happened.
Yeah, I think we both wanted Dame and we both wanted Jalen to get in there, but we kind of had a feeling it was going to be Kyrie or Luka.
Yeah, and that ended up what happening. I have less of a problem with Luca. I don't know why, just because he's still putting up good numbers. Kyrie, I just think he missed so much of the season that I don't know. And
I
it is
think
it is
I think
sorry,
Dame
go ahead.
deserved it more. Dame deserved it more than
Right,
Jalen,
exactly.
but yeah.
But Luca deserved it more than Kyrie. Exactly.
Mhm.
I agree with that. Completely. So um but yeah, so it ends up being the East is Kyrie, Bradley Beal, Giannis, Kevin Durant, and Embiid, and then the West we saw LeBron, Jokic, Kawhi, and then Luka and Steph Curry at the guard spots. So, but again, pretty much what we expected here. But while we were on, kind of this topic here, I did want to go through maybe our picks for the reserves. They're getting announced right before or on Tuesday night. So, whether we do Tuesday or Wednesday, either way, we're usually a little later than that. So this will probably be our last show before those get picked. So I wanted to start with the East and kind of here. Maybe we'll do what we did, kind of what we did last time. Like one will lead and one will. So maybe I'll go forward with my East picks here, and then you kind of lead the West if
Mhm.
that works for you, Mike.
Mhm.
So for the East, again, kind of, I think I'm not exactly sure what the criteria is. I think it's about like probably 3 guards, 3 forwards, and then maybe like a flex spot or something like that for the 7 reserves. But I didn't love picking James Harden, but again, just because he missed some time, he wasn't in the East the whole time. But again, threw him on there. Obviously, I've got Jaylen Brown making his first ever All Star team. I have Trae Young. I have Zach LaVine, and then at the forward spots, I got Tatum, Sabonis, and Julius Randle.
Okay, so I was undecided between two people.
Okay,
So
I might agree with you.
so I'm going to, just for the sake to be different, I'm gonna flip out. I mean, so I'm very happy that you love the East. So
Okay.
I of course had Harden, Brown, Levine, Sabonis, Randall, Tatum, and I think I'm gonna put Ben Simmons over Trae Young.
Okay. All right. I just think, yeah, I probably ignored. I mean, I went up for a guy. I thought I had an idea, and then just like again, I obviously don't watch every single game, so I wanted to kind of verify it. And that's actually, I think, pretty much what Perk had so for his picks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Simmons, I think is someone who is maybe getting overlooked because he's not putting up the insane stats. But that's also one that I don't think you could complain too much about. Another guy I did want to get in there to that initial list that I couldn't quite find a way to squeeze in was Jeremy Grant for Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's had a really very solid year there.
So yeah, I think he's the guy that, I mean, obviously, being on the Pistons probably doesn't help your case,
Mm-hmm.
but a guy that again in between injuries or whatever it might be, guys not wanting to go to Atlanta, whatever, we could potentially see some replacements down the line. So maybe we'll be able to get guys like Simmons and Grant in it if it ends up being my picks, or you know what I mean, just like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
opening up some more spots there. It's really a tough year. I think a lot of times you kind of have an idea about who's going to get on the roster and everything, but again, NBA is definitely the hardest because it's only 12 spots at each conference, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good players out there. That's right, I said it. A lot of good players in the NBA these days.
Okay, so we made it to episode 11, and we're done. So
Yeah, a real hot take there, but yeah. So okay, so you mostly agree, just swapping out that one guard there.
yeah, but like, I mean, I can definitely. I literally on my list I had Trey / Ben, so
Yeah.
I was going
Okay.
either way. So
Yeah. So so Simmons, and then yeah, like I said, Grant's the other kind of honorable mention I had. And then why don't you lead us with your picks for the West?
okay, so from the guards, I of course had Dame Lillard,
Yep.
Donovan Mitchell, and Devin Booker.
Okay, and then also disclosure here. So
Oh
you picked
yes,
someone
yes.
besides Anthony Davis, right? Because
Anthony Davis is getting my pick, but there's going to be injury.
you'll make
replacement.
8 picks.
I'm going to make 8 picks. So
yeah, exactly. So you said, sorry, repeat that again. So you used Dame, Devin Booker,
and Donovan Mitchell.
Correct. Okay.
And then I had Paul George, Anthony Davis, of course, and Rudy Gobert.
Mm-hmm.
And then I couldn't decide which one is the 7th and which one is the injury replacement. So I'm just going to say them both at the same time. The top 2 picks from last year's draft, John Morant and Zion Williamson.
All right. So I pretty much have that same list there. The only thing is, I'm like, and maybe I haven't been paying too close of attention to guys that you expect to be good. Don't really move the needle as much. So like, again, Paul George, I didn't really know how good of a season he was having. So just to be a little bit different, I had the other, AD and then the other 6 the same as you. I had both the picks, but instead of Paul George. I threw Christian Wood on there because I think he's having a fantastic year for Houston. I agree, it's probably more likely going to be Paul George, but he's another guy that I threw on there as well.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic year, so it's at least us giving him a shout out. It means something.
Yeah, exactly. So if he makes the squad, I definitely want some credit. And then only other, I mean, there's probably a lot of people that get snubbed there. I think a name that I heard kicked around is probably the best player in the league for a while now that has never made an All-Star team. That's Mike Conley. Even though it's good, the Jazz have been fantastic this year. I don't know if they get 3 guys on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a little bit of a tough one. And then other than that, I had a couple Kentucky guys just missing out of the squad as well from the guard spot. I had Shea and De'Aaron Fox both having good years out there.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple honorable mentions there as well. Again, I think more or less this is how the roster will shake out. We'll obviously see. Again, Tuesday night we'll have kind of reactions to who ends up getting picked. If there are any snubs, kind of what we make of that, and then obviously if any injury replacements come down the line. But obviously exciting for a lot of these guys that I think we might see a lot of first-time picks this year. Like you said, we could see Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, Zach LaVine, and then, like you said, the top 2 picks from last year as well could definitely get a spot here. So always excited when you have first-timers. But so we'll keep an eye on everything NBA-wise. I just want to hit on a few other topics here as I kind of scroll down the list here. So we'll hit on some hockey to start. Bruins were kind of off for a little bit, but then dropped a game to New Jersey. And from every indication I had, again, I didn't quite catch it, but it seems like that was kind of one of their worst games of the season so far.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. It was very much a very sluggish effort from them.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like some sloppy passing, and Nick Palmieri had 2 goals on them. He kind of was a bigger name a couple of years ago, but it's kind of still in the Devils, kind of doing his thing. I think his first 2 goals in the year, but I think Halak was in that, and it was kind of just a very sluggish effort. They're down. It was 1-0, and then they gave up a shorthanded goal, like a 2-0, but it was a double minor, so it was a 4-minute power play. So they're able to, on the back end, like very much at the end of the power play, make it 2-1 and then sort of like kind of make it a game. But right before the end of the period, there was a Devils goal, so it kind of like theoretically ended it. I know Pasternak got one with like a minute left, but it was a little too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Devils are doing a little better than we thought. I mean, I thought they'd be like a bottom 5 team, but I think they're like 6-4-3 or something like that.
Yeah. And I wonder too, just again, since this season's been so weird, they've had all these layoffs, and then it's kind of a weird game because they were off for a while, and then they're in Lake Tahoe now.
Played a lot of games.
Wow. So I don't know. I wonder how much of that was kind of like a, maybe subconsciously, even if you're not realizing it might be kind of a, a look ahead game where you haven't played in so long. Then you have this one random game before you ship out to Lake Tahoe. This weekend, does that kind of maybe, slip up there? Halak started that game, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So Tuchel will be starting this weekend, but again, I don't know if you had any other little tidbits, but the main focus this weekend seems to be, like I said, Lake Tahoe. We have the Knights and Avalanche today at 3, and then Bruins Flyers tomorrow at 2. And again, as our half speed friends over at Felger and Mass tell us, the Rick looks really cool. If you're from around here, and there was a funny clip going on Twitter of them at half speed, and sounded like they sounded intoxicated, but it was just at half speed, but very funny anyway. But yeah, it really does look cool though, because it's again just so different than again the middle of a packed Ann Arbor, Michigan, or Gillette Stadium, or Fenway Park, or your Wrigley, whatever it is. It's not a usual stadium. It's literally just like, again, on a lake. So it's really, really cool and different environment. I think it should be exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch it just for like the aesthetics. It's just going to look really cool. I mean,
Exactly.
Of course, the outdoor games are a little sloppier with like the keeping the ice conditions the right way, but very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, so it should be fun. Like I said, we got, like I said, Knights and Avs today, and then the hometown Bruins play tomorrow.
Yeah,
so it should be a fun weekend for the NHL.
My one hockey note would be to give the Florida Panthers a nice shout out. They're 11-2-2, and this week they had a game Monday, Wednesday, and last night they've scored 17 goals in 3 games. So
wow.
Yeah, 6-4 against the Lightning, 4-3 against the Hurricanes, and last night a nice 7-2 victory over the lowly Detroit Red Wings.
How the mighty fall. They were awesome in the early 2000s. I was a huge fan of those teams. But yeah, okay. So again, should be an exciting weekend for the NHL as we kind of move through the seasons here. Wanted to briefly hit on some college hoops. Again, I'm kind of just chomping at the bit for conference tournaments if they happen, and then obviously the big dance once we get to mid-March. But again, a lot of cancellations happening. But a few games to kind of note here. Big upset the other day with Houston losing to Wichita State, number 6 in the country. Houston was before falling to the Shockers.
Yeah, this week. I mean, there's some good games. Well, later on today, I'll get into at the end of this, but it was a lot of like ranked versus unranked, sort of just like kind of pretty chalk results, like nothing really to talk about. I think the best night of the week for college basketball was Thursday, where, like you said, Wichita State was able to upset Houston. I was able to catch a decent amount of that game to kind of just like flipping back and forth between that and the Bruins game. And Houston got off that game. That game started at 7. The Bruins at 7:30. So I kind of watched the first half hour of this game. So like Houston got off to an amazing start. It looked like they're just going to run away, beating down on a lesser opponent. But Wichita State was able to battle back. I keep on calling him with a different first name, but it was Tyson Etienne, not Travis Etienne. Best player
Clemson running back
is one of the best players on Wichita State, and he kind of really let a run at the end of that first half to kind of make it a tie ball game. He had a very nice move. It was kind of sick. It was like a nice crossover like between someone's leg. Then he kind of just like chucked up his ball. He got hit and no one in. So it was a very big momentum shifter. And at the end of the game, it was 64-63 Wichita State with 10 seconds left, and they got fouled for a 1-1. And they missed the front end. So it was like, oh, Houston might come down, steal this at the buzzer. And they got the half court. They got stripped. And the guy went down court and just went to like dribble out the clock. He went for a layup. So I was like shocking, like, what are you doing? Usually you make it. It's gonna be a 3-point game. Yeah, good one. But as he got hit, it was a flagrant 2. They had 2 shots in the ball. So it was the next thing you know, it was a 5-point game, and they were able to finish off the upset. So don't sleep on Wichita State. They're actually now in first place in that conference due to like lack of games, because they had a little So I think like they're like 9-2, and Houston's 11-3 in conference. So like technically they're above them, but like it can shift around. And then outside of that, 11 Iowa was able to get back on track, beating 21 Wisconsin in Wisconsin by 15 points. I know Iowa's kind of like was the big dog in the Big Ten going in, but they've kind of really leveled off with some pretty bad losses. And then keeping it in the Big Ten, 5 Illinois was able to win on Wednesday against Northwestern. And then Michigan was able to take care of Rutgers at home, and Ohio State was able to defend a scare against Penn State. So 3, 4, 5, and between Michigan, Ohio State, and Illinois in that order. And then tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m., it'll be a little nice appetizer for the Lake Tahoe and the Celtic game.
Big day tomorrow.
Yeah, it's for sports, Michigan at Ohio State, 3 out of 4. So that'll be a good to watch.
Yeah, typically that's a big football game, but good basketball matchup this year with, like you said, 3 and 4 at the moment.
And then there are a couple of good games on the slate today. Texas Tech at Kansas, that's 15 versus 23, and then West Virginia 13 at 12 Texas. So those are 2 ranked matchups, and of course some other ranked teams in action. Virginia at Duke, and then don't sleep on UConn, Villanova. UConn's a much better team now that Book Knight's back. And of course, Kentucky at Tennessee. I know Kentucky stinks, and Tennessee's pretty good, but I feel like that's always a good game. So, starting to get back into action.
Yeah. So, again, hopefully the schedule kind of takes better form as we kind of get into the final weeks. Or like I said, getting into what would be conference championships if they happen, or just kind of determining if the automatic bid goes to the top finisher in each conference. So we'll see how that shakes out. And then, like I said, all before we get into the big dance. And finally, just wrapping up here with some MLB, nothing too crazy happening in the last few days since obviously the Benintendi trade happened. Obviously, junior extension came on, the other night, on Wednesday night when we were recording. So pitchers and catchers reporting this week. So we're starting to get there. Like I said, we're in mid to late February here. So it's coming, but I try not to get too excited because it means there's another like month and a half left. So it's still a long time to go. I just had some cleanup transactions here. Cubs bringing in Brandon Workman, former Red Sox great, who got traded to Philly last year. Also bringing back Jake Arrieta, who was obviously fantastic, in 2015 there. James Paxton back to the Mariners. Padres add. Sorry.
So Sorry, Mac with the Cubs, and kind of really like that. Like both their moves, like their bullpen was
Mhm.
pretty pitiful. So get Workman and Kimbrel back in the 2018 bullpen out there in Chicago,
Right.
and then with Arrieta, I mean, I think he was in Philly for 2 years, and there's one thing you can't really do in Philly is kind of be injured and not pitch that well because they're gonna hate you pretty quickly. So nice move for him to get back to his comfort zone, get back to David Ross as manager now. I mean, he was a teammate back in the 2010s with him. So it's good to kind of just get back to a comfort zone. Hopefully, you can hope for a nice little bounce back there. And then when it comes to Paxton, the Mariners, I find it pretty funny that the Yankees give all that money. I mean, give all that assets like Justice Sheffield and a couple of the prospects just to have them be pretty mediocre in New York just to go back to Seattle. So I kind of like when that happens, like the whole Chris Archer deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you traded all this stuff and then they end up just going right back. Exactly.
After a very mediocre tenure.
Yeah, exactly. So, then we also, Padres signing Melanson and Kayla there.
So yeah,
Trev.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna give like a little tidbit after some of these.
No, that's right. I didn't know if we were running through or what.
Yeah, and then I kind of like that. I mean, just more bullpen pieces for a very very stacked lineup in the rotation. So very much a big fan of that to add to their pretty good bullpen, but definitely could use some help there.
Then we had Travis Shaw, who spent a little bit of time with Toronto following time with the Milwaukee Brewers, and he's going right back to Milwaukee to sign back with the Brewers there. So again, it seems like he had success when he was out there in Milwaukee the first time around, following his stint with the Red Sox, and we'll see if he can replicate that there.
More ding dongs.
More ding dongs for the mayor. A's adding a couple arms in the pen too. Trevor Rosenthal and then also Sergio Romo, former World Series champion closer for the Giants back in the day.
Yeah, not sure how much Romo is going to give to them, but that was an amazing sign by Rosenthal. I did not expect him to. I know it was like 1 year, like 11 mil, but I was shocked when the A's shell out that type of money for someone that's like not even homegrown. So that's a very big signing for him to replace Liam Hendricks that walked for the big deal to Chicago. So I'm very much a fan of that signing without them. Dallas Braden actually called it on a starting 9 this week. So it was he was like, oh, maybe like because they're talking to Rosenthal, he's like, maybe come to the A's, and then Jared's like, no, that's not gonna happen. And he's like, oh, so he's pretty happy about that.
And then a couple old heads still hanging around in baseball. We got Oliver Perez heading back to Cleveland, and then Rich Hill signing in Tampa with the Rays.
Yeah, that's I like the signing for Tampa there because it's just he lost some rotation arms, and he's kind of the guy that's not going to go pretty deep in the game, so he's kind of fits into the mold as a nice little opener for them to get them into their very powerful bullpen, and then the stable, that's I would say. And then how's Oliver Perez still kicking around? I mean, he's been in Cleveland the past like 5 years, but like talk about a guy that's didn't he like start like game 7 like the CS back in like the 2000s? Like the Mets.
I think someone showed his baseball reference. I think it went back to like 2002 or something. So
yeah, that's been
granted he was like 20 years old then or something, but
very mediocre pitcher. But just if you can hang around, you can hang around. That's the life of the middle reliever.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a few cleanup moves there, like we said, and then still kind of waiting for the weather to get warmer, and then moving into, like I said, the tournament for college basketball, and then also opening day for baseball. So a lot to look forward to. Like I said, we covered a lot of NBA. Next week we'll obviously have reactions to the All-Star game, see who gets in as far as the reserves go, see how close our picks were. Again, I'm assuming it's probably going to be from the same crop of people. I don't think we'll see many major surprises, but if there are any, we'll obviously talk about those snubs. See how the whole Lake Tahoe experience goes for the NHL, and how a lot of these college hoops matchups work out, like we were mentioning before, with Ohio State, Michigan playing tomorrow. So obviously a huge game there. And as always, looking out to see what happens in the NFL offseason, see if any major moves happen. But I think that's all we had for today. Nothing major to add here, unless you had anything, Mike.
No, got nothing.
All right. Well, like I said, we'll catch up early next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday, with kind of the updates on what's happening around the leagues. But until then, thanks everyone. Hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for tuning in as always.
Thank you as always.